morning. Welcome to Detroit in Black and White. I said the edition I made off Mongo. Oh man, I'm surrounded by buzz. Two former police chiefs here. One from the lovely city of Trenton, and our co-host and producer, Jim Nardone. How you doing, Jim?
Good morning. I'm doing fine. Happy to have the chief here this morning.
Hey,
Glad to be here.
and
Love it.
Mayoral candidate, former police chief, former police officer. What were you, a lieutenant in LA?
No, when I rose up through the ranks in LA, I actually started as a police officer
Okay.
and then went all the way up to a commanding officer, Captain 3. And I was over one of LA's 22 police stations.
You went to Cincinnati. You were.
I was police chief there, Portland, Maine police chief.
Yeah, I've been to Portland, Maine.
You're one of the,
I've been there a couple times. I've been there a couple times. A great. Listen, I like the city. In the summertime.
in the summer. You do not want to go on the
No,
So Captain 3 is the highest captain rank.
Yeah, we have pay grade advanced positions inside of ranks. So Captain 3 is a commanding officer, probably be equivalent to Detroit's commander. And so, that's the highest captain rank than his commander. Generally, a Captain 3 runs a station. LA has probably now 24 stations. So I had the good fortune of running one of the busiest stations in the city, South LA. Those who know LA, where USC, University of Southern California, is located. That's part of the Southwest area.
You rarely talk about your experience in LA, although that was your majority of your time.
It set the tone for me.
we just want to make sure, James Craig, if you don't know him, if you hadn't seen him, he was here. He came at a time where it was dark days in the city,
It was
bankruptcy, etc. And he took over a police department that had been under the control of the feds. Why you want to come back?
I'm a public servant. I've been a public servant for 44 years, and as we talked offline, the chief job is somewhat political, although I try to insulate myself from politics as a chief. I knew what my job was, to serve the people of Detroit, every city I worked in. So I did my job, did it well, and certainly I got a lot of support from the community. I got a lot of support from, the men and women who I served with and the stakeholders in the city. So as I oftentimes like to say, the last 8 years of my 44-year public service career in public safety was the best. Coming home to Detroit was a dream come true. But that dream needs to continue. It needs to continue, and that's why I'm running for mayor, because I'm passionate about public service, and I'm excited about the future of this city. The city has seen upward trajectory, as has been pointed out. I came at a very turbulent time, a very challenging time in the city's history. And so I can take these glasses off, talk to you sometime. These AI glasses. But anyway, I came at a very difficult time. Even if we just talk about the police department, Adolph, you mentioned it. Detroit police were under federal oversight for 13 years, one of the longest consent decrees, only exceeded by Oakland, California. And I always tell this story because it's important to say, I came, and within 1 year, after 13 years of oversight, we got out of the consent decree, and that's not accidental. We talk about leadership, we talk about transparency, but most important, accountability. And that's what I will bring to the mayor's seat, because that's very, you got accountability. And without it, things like status quo. This is the way we've always done. I remember when I first got back to Detroit, and I was looking at the systems and how things were done. The morale was at the bottom. I said, why do we do it this way? And they said, Chief, we kind of always have. Why do we have sworn police officers working in dispatch? Chief, we've always done it that way. Why do we have police officers standing out at the intersection directing traffic? We've always done it that way. So not logical. Every city I've worked, we hire civilian employees to manage call taking and dispatching calls to service the police. You go to any major city in the country, the people that are directing traffic are civilian employees.
I think those cops you referred to that was directed traffic. And I worked for Coben Young. That was punishment.
Oh, was
You
it
know,
considered punishment?
well, a lot of them was part of stress.
Oh, I remember.
You know,
I remember
yeah.
stress.
When he came in office, he you know, the mayor, and we have a strong mayoral government.
Yes.
He put them there. You know, these was veteran police officers from the street, and they were. I forgot all about. We had especially downtown. We
Right.
had all these veteran cops
Right.
directing traffic. Now, who do we have directing traffic now?
We hired civilians, and talking about stress, I tell you stress, sir, because to your viewers, you know, I started my policing career here in Detroit in the 70s under Coleman. And so what was interesting, stress was disbanded. And for your viewers again, Stop the Robbers, Enjoy Safe Streets, which was a very controversial team of officers that the mayor felt, you know, wasn't good for our city. And so he disbanded it, right thing to do. And I remember a former stress sergeant was my sergeant in the 10th precinct. And I'll never forget it. It was my first night on foot patrol, walking down Linwood at 2 o'clock in the morning. And my partner, I was 19, my partner was 18, and we hear shots fired. So we're looking at each other, going through a 3-month academy. So we really didn't know how to be police officers. So I saw the scout car come up. It was a stress sergeant, like he's about 70 years old. He said, "What's going on, rookie?" I said, "Somebody's down in the alley shooting." He said, "Why are you standing there? Go run after him." So I only bring that story up. It's kind of a funny story, but he didn't want to be there. And just like the point that Adolph made about, you know, a lot of these former stress officers were given traffic duties and didn't want to do it. But it was a very different time in the 70s and before the 70s. So there's been an evolution, but it was interesting to come back after so many years and to see what was going on in the police department where some things just did not change.
From the time you left in 1981?
I left it, I joined LA in 81. When I got back in 2013, I couldn't believe it. I mean, sworn police officers who could be out in the field handling calls for service were sitting in a dispatch center giving calls out.
Vanessa Moss, how you doing?
Good morning, everybody. And listen, good morning to all those that are watching Detroit in Black and White, which is the greatest show on this side of the country. Good morning to you all. We want you to like, subscribe, and share. Hit that like button. Listen, we're trying to get our subscriptions up, and we need you to help us do that. So tell all your friends about Detroit in Black and White. You can catch us on all social media platforms. You can catch us every Wednesday and Friday night from 8:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. and every Saturday morning live at McShane's. Listen, guys, we usually invite you guys to comment in the chat. I'm not there, so I'm not going to be able to read. I'm trying to use my phone to do this show. So I'm going to ask that you, Jim Adolph, read the comments that our viewers made questions. Thank you.
All right.
We have our friends Miss Boyce and Kenneth Powell that are
D-Love there.
She's
D-Love
here.
is
What
there.
do you mean? She's not here in person.
I thought she was there in person.
But she's
Listen,
always
she
with
got a
us.
history she could tell you. Her mother was the first Black Boilermaker that was hired by the city of Detroit. I keep telling her she needs to come down and tell the story. But hey, Queen
We'd
B,
love to
hey,
hear it.
D-Love.
You have
Sam,
a question? You have a
Timothy.
question for Chief Craig?
Well, you know what? I actually want to just pick up on the conversation that we were having before we went live, and we're talking about. I think the conversation was about politicizing the office of police chief, and so Chief Hollywood Craig. Well, yeah, I need for you to give our viewers what your opinion is about that. I submit that people do not give a doggone what their police chief is, whether they're a D or R or I. They want their issues addressed. If they live in a crime infested neighborhood, listen, we want the police out there. We want you to address it. And I
Yeah.
think one of the things that we find common ground is that people don't care. When the police come to your house, and nobody asking you, are you a Democrat or are you a Republican?
Thank you.
Nobody's
Thank you for
asking that.
saying that. Thank you. Nobody's ever asked me, nor they never asked me what my political leaning was. And certainly I oftentimes say, when someone calls the police, say, wait a minute, stop a minute. Are you Democrat or Republican or independent? Because depending on what you tell me is how we're going to respond. And of course, that's ludicrous. It just doesn't happen. And I've been a public servant for 44 years, and that's never been an issue because it's about serving people. And people want service. They want transparent. They want to make sure that you respond appropriately to whatever their issue, big or small.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I always had a perspective that the police department belongs to the public, and we're having a comment that says that the police chief, and we're talking about a mayoral race here, does not
Right.
part with the citizens, and I find that ludicrous. I'm not suggesting that he's wrong. I'm just saying that that's just not the way police or lead a city.
A police chief should not be politicized. I guess the best example, and we talked off air just before the show, and one of the things I brought up, and your viewers this will resonate. So let's talk about summer of 2020, when a lot of cities across our nation were on fire. It was looting, attacks on police officers, attack on citizens. And one city comes to mind, Seattle, Washington. So, of course, we all remember what that mayor said. This is the summer of love. We're just going to let them do whatever. The police chief literally stands right next to the mayor, says nothing, does nothing. But what was even more troubling was when those folks that came to Seattle to incite uprising, they made the police, they basically evicted the police from the police station, made them leave, took over 7 city blocks, called it the autonomous zone, and gave direction that the police are no longer allowed to come in that 7-block area, whatever it's called. How does that happen? And so I was also talking about an opportunity after 2020 to give a speech to a group of Los Angeles officers in San Diego. And during my conversation, they said, we just want to know why Detroit didn't burn, because everybody would have thought with Detroit's history, it would have burned in 2020. I said, number 1 is leadership. 2, well-trained police officers. 3, a community that stood with and by us during the times when people came in and just tried to create a problem. It didn't happen. But more importantly, the mayor supported me. Now, I said, and I continue to say it, if I had worked for the mayor that told me to stand down, basically, you're not going to serve these good people of Detroit. Let these people that are here to start riots, let them do it. It didn't happen. Because if it had happened, 1 or 2 things would have happened for me. I would have resigned immediately, or I would have been fired. And that's what didn't happen in these other cities. And that's so unfortunate.
Yeah. Let's take a break. We're going to come back and continue the conversation with mayoral candidate James Craig, former police chief in the city of Detroit. And we want to talk about the mayor's race and your vision of Detroit going forward.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Okay, we're back with Chief James Craig. Vanessa, you have a question?
Yes.
Comment?
So before we went on air, listen, I told you, I said, look, I didn't like you when you was the chief of police. I didn't care if they called you Hollywood, Wood, whatever. I was like, whatever, okay? However, I will say that my opinion of you really did change with this mayoral race, and I'm gonna tell you why. A forum that you were involved in, and I was like, oh, okay, this guy's the real deal. Now we're talking about the police chief position is not should not be politicized. I agree, but now you're running for a political office. What transferable skills do you bring from the police department to that of mayoralship? And what are you going to do in terms of? I know you're very popular with people, but those people who like myself was like, I don't like him. I don't care what he say, whatever. What are you doing to get change people mind? Because that's what you have to do.
Why didn't you like me? Why didn't you like me? I'm
Well,
curious.
I'm going to
It's like,
tell you, there was one
okay,
thing that you did. We were at uh, Dabo. I was there in the audience, and you basically told the people, and this is how I received it. You need to police yourselves, and I was like, dude, you making all this money. You telling me if I live in 205 that I need to police myself? Are you kidding me? Listen, you're not going to be able to change the culture by that kind of speech. I was
right.
personally offended, so that's why I didn't like you. Plus,
And
you
you know,
wore the sunglasses. Plus, you wore the sunglasses, and you thought you were
You
Hollywood. I
you
just
didn't
can't.
like me.
well, actually,
I
there's a
didn't like
change in that.
Adolf
No, but you know, I appreciate you bringing that up because I don't recall making that statement, but you know, I have always been so passionate about serving people. And I mean that. I mean, because making a difference in a community, I've always had a community, and you'll hear me say it on this mayoral race, is I have a neighborhood focus because I
either.
care about the people that live in the cities. And one of the things that I know you've probably heard, or we all have heard, and I know I've heard this, the police chief, is two Detroits. You know, you got downtown, and then you got the neighborhoods. And people have come to me and said, oh, well, I just don't feel like we're getting what downtown gets. What people forget, downtown is a neighborhood. And downtown, compared to where it was in 2013, it wasn't a very vibrant place. It is now, and it's continued to improve. But we have to continue to work hard to work with our neighborhoods, with a neighborhood focus. And I mean everything. What's important to me clearly is public safety. We got to continue to enhance safety in our neighborhoods, in our city. You know, I'll give you an example. So recently, the police department was excited to announce that the murders in Detroit have gone significantly down and mirror what it was like in the 60s. Okay, that's great. But if I talk to Miss Smith, who lives off Grasham, east side of Detroit, and she tells me that she still doesn't feel safe, then we can't wave a flag of success because the perception of crime is significant and important. Because here's the reality of it. Now, we can take numbers and make it look a certain way. What's even more important to me is being transparent and saying, look, in 1966, Detroit was of 1.6 million in population. We had, what, 6,000 police officers on the police department. Okay. So when you make a comparison to a city that is now 633,000,
Right.
7th or 18th largest city in America.
25th.
Oh, 25th. You're right.
25th largest city.
25th largest city. It's hard for me to get excited about numbers like that when the city was much larger in the 60s. And I just bring that up because I think it's important to say that. Yes, numbers are great. They can give you a picture of the direction we're going, but we got to continue to have a conversation about the other stuff. So,
what do you bring that's different
and I'm glad you.
to this race? And I'm going to ask you this question, and it's not to knock anybody.
Right.
Reverend Kinlock, Solomon Kinlock, a prominent pastor, 40,000 folks in you know in his ministry.
Right.
And he was elected, and it don't seem like he was stepped down as a minister of Triumph Church. Can a person serve two cities? Because what he's serving right now is a city when you got thousands of people.
Absolutely.
and then you say, well, we're going to give you a city of 600,000 folks, and well, I'm going to do both. Can you do both, or is this job is a job that you got to be solely focused on being the mayor?
Right. Well, let me just say, having served as police chief and deputy mayor in the city of Detroit,
Isn't that kind of different?
absolutely, the mayor's job is a full-time, 24-hour, 7-day job. Period. That's the way it is. Love it or not, that's how it is. And the people expect you to pour all of you into that work. So, you know, I think he's a great pastor. My personal opinion, and it might be the opinion of many, you can't do both. You just can't. You have to do one or the other. And this is not a negative on him. It's just a reality that I know. But I'm going to go back to a question you asked, Adolph, and I think it's important that your viewers know what I bring is very different. Is two things: executive leadership. Executive leadership. I've been in a leadership role in 3 cities, and you can also count my time. My last probably 10 years of LA, I was in an executive leadership role. That should not be taken for granted. And then the other part of it is understanding how to effectively manage a crisis. Critically important, because a president, a governor, or a mayor, their first priority is to the safety of who they are leading. Number one priority. So point in case. These are 2 recent examples.
Yeah.
So in Los Angeles, they had probably one of the worst wildfires in modern history. And I've lived there for almost 3 decades, so I know when the Santa Ana winds are at a height, there's a likelihood of fires. Except this time, the winds were so high that a large part of residential LA was, in an affluent area of LA, was on fire. Tragic. The mayor decided before the fires hit, and I'm not so critical about the fact that she left the country, but I am more critical of what she did when she returned. So, and this is going,
I Karen Bass.
yeah, the mayor, Karen Bass. She gets off the plane. She gets off the plane. If former congresswoman, because you're a lawmaker doesn't necessarily mean you can lead a city, lead a state. It just doesn't translate all the time. So anyway, makes long story short, Karen gets off the flight, and a reporter asked her a question that made a lot of sense. I guess the fire budget was slashed, and he said, "Ms. Mayor, do you think LAFD's inability to fight the fires in LA was because their budget was cut significantly?" She looked, didn't speak, looked down, and walked away. And we talk about Hollywood Craig, and I know we say it from a place of comedy, and I'm good with it. People want to know, what are we doing about this situation? That was a major tragedy. You don't get to say nothing. You get to say something. And even if you don't know all the facts, say, wait a minute, I'm just landing. I don't know what's going on. I'm getting briefed now, but as soon as I know, you will know. Second, New Orleans. We all know about New Orleans. We know about the French Quarter. New Year's Eve. So we know the impact of, the tourism that comes to New Orleans, but in the French Quarter on New Year's Eve. So certainly a terrorist knew that it was going to be heavily populated. He drives a car through and tragedy strikes. Many people were tragically killed from this terrorist action. And so the mayor and the police chief standing together. Well, first, let's talk about the chief. So I guess in the French Quarter, they have these ballards to prevent vehicles from coming into that footprint, and for all the right reasons. Well, some of them were non-operational. Some of them had been moved over to the stadium in preparation for the Super Bowl. But when asked the question, police chief said, "I don't know anything about that." How do you not know about a protection of a footprint on New Year's Eve? I mean, did you have a pre-planning meeting to discuss this? That's issue one. Issue two, the state of Louisiana I guess, sent down a number of reports saying to the mayor, you need to harden the target this first quarter. Nothing was done. So I bring those two examples up. Look, this is not on the job training being the mayor of the city of Detroit. Not on the job training. You need a trained professional, someone who has a skill set, who can respond. Because let's face it, it's not if something's going to happen, it will happen. We don't want to talk about it. Let me just say this. In preparation for 2020, nobody could have guessed that cities across the country were going to be on fire. But this chief, his staff, I had a meeting 2 weeks prior to when everything started to happen. I told my staff, I said, look, I need to know with clarity, are we prepared to deal with civil unrest if it comes to our city? So I got a few blank stares with my executive team. I said, I tell you what, I want the pressure training. I wanted to start immediately, and I want an assessment of the equipment that the officers would have to have in the event that there is an uprising. So the day went by, I asked that same executive level chief officer, I said, where are we with the training? He said, we haven't started. I said, clearly you didn't understand my direction. So now you have to get it started today. We started the training, made an assessment of the equipment. Within 2 weeks, it started. And people said, well, how did you know? Divine interference, a dream, whatever you want to say. But we were prepped. We were prepared because I anticipate. Leaders have to anticipate. Look, I'll give you another example. Every year in Detroit, we have a big event called the Thanksgiving Day Parade. Thousands of people converge on Detroit to see that parade. Do you think there's planning, public safety plan that goes in place prior to? Absolutely. Could I have stood up in front of a camera if tragedy struck? Somebody drove through, God forbid, that parade route. And I said, well, did you have a meeting? Did you plan for it? Well, not really. Look, this is not on-job training when you talk about being the mayor. You need a mayor who's going to hit the ground running. And I'm the only candidate with executive level experience, leadership, that can make that happen.
Let me ask you this. And I know your time is tight today. As mayor, you're talking about being a leader. Should the mayor be in control of the schools? Because I'm an advocate. The only way that we're going to bring back our neighborhoods, the only way we're going to have families move back into the city, not young folks. I'm talking about families. People who got 3, 4 kids and send their kids to a neighborhood school, is for somebody to hold their school system accountable.
You know, and I appreciate the question. And sadly, not enough elected people in our city hit the table and scream about our broken public schools. Let's face it, they're broken. I know I infuriate some, and they're broken because of leadership. I'm going to call it what it is. Broken schools, leadership. That superintendent came in when I did in 2013. If my performance was on that level, I would have been fired. Within not a year, 6 months, I would have been gone, done.
Listen,
Okay, sorry.
no, I have to agree with you. I just have to interject. I've said that several times. I don't even understand how that happens. I know how it happened because you have a board that's elected by the people who act as if they work for him as opposed to him working for the people that
Amen.
elected them. That's a huge problem with me. But, you know, we don't have enough people, like you said, in leadership pounding the table and say, I need you to be accountable. I have one question to ask you before you leave, so I want you to finish your answer, but I had to interject.
Okay, I think the schools are important. They say, well, Chief, you don't control the schools, isn't it? I understand it.
Would you want to control the schools?
I mean,
Coleman Young, it said they need to answer to somebody, and he got his ass beat all the way down Woodward, saying, "Oh, you can't do that." And at the time, there was over 200,000 kids in the Detroit public schools. We had about 6 different regions in the Detroit public schools, and now we got 30,000. It's like you don't have anything. even the superintendent didn't even send his own kids to Detroit public schools.
That says a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah,
It's just like somebody running for mayor who doesn't live in Detroit. That says a lot. Every time, both times I've lived, and I'm not, hey, I'm not
I don't
taking a
know who you
shot.
throwing stones
But
at,
guess
but
what?
okay.
I live in the city of Detroit. I was born in the city of Detroit. I have never, both times living in Michigan, lived in the city. But going back to the schools real quick, I just want to say, in a realistic way, the mayor can partner. Look, I love those school teachers, and I'm gonna draw an analogy between the school teachers and police officers. When I arrived in Detroit, the morale of the men and women who served is at the very bottom. So we work very hard to raise the morale. And when you do that, it is amazing to watch the level of performance of those who do this job. Well, guess what? Those men and women who serve, I'm talking about the teachers. I'll be willing to bet if we did an assessment on the morale of those teachers, it's going to be at the bottom. You change the morale of those teachers. And by the way, the mayor can use his bully pulpit to call this out, the broken schools, because you know what's alarming, and I'm going to say this to your viewers. When I was running for governor, I learned several cities. Let's talk about Detroit, Flint, Benton Harbor. What I found is alarming. Back then, only 8% of third graders could read in Detroit public schools, because a third grader has to know how to read. So by the time they go into the fourth grade, they have to read to learn. Okay, so imagine if only 8%. When I last looked, is an F grade. That's not a pass grade. That doesn't even hit. But so one person told me, kind of pushed back, said, "Well, it's gotten better, Chief." I said, "What is it now?"
10%.
It's at 11%. Still an F grade.
Yeah.
We must do better. We can't talk about growing our middle class. We can't talk about creating a workforce. And I'm not talking about college educated folks. I'm talking about someone who matriculates through high school. Working class folks. Yeah. We can't do it without the appropriate education. As you pointed out, Adolph, a lot of young families leave the city of Detroit. And I've had conversations with a number of them. One young lady who's an entrepreneur said she moved to Westland. I said, "Why'd you move to Westland?" "My son's in high school. I wanted him to get a great education." I said, "Well, could have went to Cass Tech, the same high school I went to."
Everybody here.
Oh, here you go. Here you go. Here you go. Here you go.
I had to throw that in.
Vanessa, your last question, and then we're gonna let the chief sum up his campaign, Jim, and you can go after Vanessa. Go ahead, Vanessa.
Okay, so it seems to me that there needs to be a shifting in terms of the mindset of respecting the city that we live in. I'm going to give you an example. When the city of Detroit was in control of Belle Isle, it was a complete and utter mess. State came in, there's respect. You don't see people acting foolish on Belle Isle, throwing trash everywhere, etc. The city has spent a heck of a lot of money on these doggone bike lanes, okay? The city has spent a heck of a lot of money on putting these speed bumps in the streets. As the mayor, and people don't use the bike lane, because I walk from my place all the way to Belle Isle. You got people riding their bikes, the motorbikes, the scooters, doing all of that. Now I'm trying to walk. I gotta watch and see whether or not I'm gonna whether somebody's gonna mow me down. What can you do as the mayor, as the leader of the city of Detroit, to change the mindset of people in terms of respecting the city that they live in?
You know, and that's a great question. I'm going to say two words: set the tone and accountability. Set the tone and accountability. Let me give you a real life example. And I appreciate what you're saying. The leader, whether it's a mayor, police chief, you set the tone, not only for the folks that work inside of city departments. In my case, it was the police department, but also the folks who work and live and are entertained in our city, setting the tone. So I was appalled when I first got here. I used to 'cause I live on the east side of Detroit. I'm driving down Jefferson, and I would see cars crossing Alter, Rose Point. As soon as they cross Alter,
Yep.
the speeds would pick up, blatantly running
Mhm.
red lights. No fear, no worry. Setting the tone means doing what needs to be done. And what we did, I said, okay, this is going to stop. So I want zero tolerance when it comes to blatant disregard for traffic. Blatant. Stop them and cite them. And let's market it and put a public campaign out. The other thing, we remember that apartment building on the east side of Detroit was formerly called Colony Arms.
Oh, I know where that is.
It was only a block and a half from the mayor's residence. A block and a half. So one of the issues was the community felt like the police didn't care. The police wasn't doing police work. The city was just out of control. And you know what? They were right. So what did I do? And this is how I got my nickname, Vanessa. I took 200 police officers. 200. Called every news station. I said, we're launching an operation this morning on the Colony Arms. Now, for those of your viewers who don't know, the Colony Arms was compared to, and those of you who've seen the movie New Jack City,
Yep.
there was an apartment
The
building
Carter.
called the Carter. Well,
Yep.
Colony Arms was Detroit's Carter. Every kind of crime imaginable took place in that building. So we went in with 200 police officers, ethical policing, went in and arrested roughly 40 or so people, had a big jail bus out. Keep in mind, we had cameras in tow. And as we were escorting the prisoners or the arrestees out of the hotel, people were leaning out the window, literally clapping. Even some of the arrestees told me, Chief, I love this. And I look, I'm taking you to jail. He says, you don't get it. The police are bad. My family lives in this building. Why is that important? I set the tone. We set the tone that this will not be tolerated. 1 block and a half from the mayor's residence of Manugian.
Mm-hmm.
Big was in office at the time, I'll add. And so we didn't just stop there. We called it throwing a party. So we threw an after party. In the after party, we came back a week later just to let them know this department is serious about eradicating criminal behavior. We did it. We did it with carjackings as well. We all know about Green Light Detroit. So as mayor, I'm going to set the tone.
Okay.
And not just for, the people who live here, but the people who work in city government.
Jim,
I'm gonna be trying.
your last question.
I'm trying to be-
We're gonna let you sum up.
I'm gonna try and be real brief here.
Go ahead.
It's the end of police week in Washington, D.C., and I'd like to applaud the chief for his 40 years
Thank you.
in a role as a police, whether he's a police officer in 1977 or a rookie, and you were making decisions every day that affected people's life. And I want to thank you for that. But
Thank you for that.
I want to talk just briefly, ask your question just briefly. I think I know the answer. It shouldn't be a really long conversation. As we talked about New Orleans and what happened on this show extensively. We did not talk about the wildfires, but if you are mayor, I guess my question to you would be, what would have happened to the police chief in New Orleans after that event that sickened me?
I'll tell you very candidly, and this is not political, police chief would have been gone. Let me just say this. What I left out in my earlier conversation, that when I came in and we transformed the police department, we got out from under federal oversight after 13 years. The thing I left out, any one of my executives can tell the story, at least 70% of those who were appointees at the rank of then inspector and above, they had 3 options: resign, retire, or get fired. I was serious about it because this was about the business of the people, and it was about the business of the men and women. Again, I talked about that issue called morale, weak leadership. So yes, I took a firm stand and we built a new leadership team with Detroit Police Department, and that's when things began to change. Only then, because the leaders in the department were held accountable to deal with this federal oversight. They knew the mandate. I brought, without, I know I don't have enough time to talk about it, but we brought ComStat in, which was something that came out of New York.
We're gonna have to bring you on.
Here's the thing, Adolph, there's a ton of points, questions, some really negative, some positive comments, some negative. I think we'll make a list of them. We'll have the
Right.
feedback and we'll cover those. But we're not ignoring the questions.
No, I don't want you to. Oh, stop.
We're not ignoring the questions, but I think we need more time I think the chief needs to address those questions.
No question. So, your campaign, tell us how to get in contact with you.
Oh, yeah. So we go to chiefcraigvermeer.com, chiefcraigvermeer.com. Look, I'm looking for your support. You know, what you see and what you know, how I performed over the last 8 years of my 44-year career is certainly what you'll see as your next mayor of Detroit. I'm committed. And when I talk about open doors and transparency, I live and breathe.
We got a couple questions.
We had one viewer, True Sensation, who said that she thought you're a great chief, but she doesn't support you for mayor because maybe because of, you know, she believes we might need some young blood. There's so many comments. I'm trying to catch some of them.
But if you make it to the general election, in November, you gonna bring the president in? You know, you got a telephone.
Well, let me just say this. It's no secret that, you know, as mayor, I will have a connection to the White House. And let's face it, Mayor Duggan had a connection to President Biden, and it helped the city. And as your mayor, I will have a connection to the White House, and I'm fully intend on leveraging that relationship to bring dollars into Detroit. We need that because I know it's so much to talk about. I want to talk about, you know, certainly bankruptcy and not going back.
We're gonna have to bring
in
one last question for the chief.
About housing development. What are your thoughts on housing development? I'm just gonna this talks about impoverished communities and not having housing. What are your thoughts on that?
That's a big priority. There's 44,000 homes needed in the area of affordable housing. 44,000. So I know one of the candidates made it, the goal was 10,000. We need 44,000. And yeah, that's a heavy lift. But one of the priorities, when we talk about growing our middle class and focusing on our neighborhoods, certainly I'm not a fan of how Detroit Land Bank is managed right now. I've heard so many complaints. I mean, when you look at affordable housing in some of these neighborhoods.
Did you get rid of it?
Well, the mayor couldn't get rid of it. However,
it's an authority. But go ahead.
However, what the mayor can do is, you know, certainly work closely with city council.
He could use it as a tool. He could use it as a tool. He could use it as a leverage. Absolutely.
And the mayor's leverage is some of the board members. So there's an opportunity there to reconfigure it, because here's what your viewers know and all of us know. And these are stories I've heard. First and foremost, many Detroiters who are trying to purchase land bank homes, they go through a bunch of red tape bureaucracy to do it and can't do it. But yet a foreign investor can come in here and buy blocks up. And what's sad about the inequity of that is that, okay, where's the accountability in holding those foreign investors?
But don't that go back way past the land bank, where people took care of a lot next door to their house for 30 years, and then they decided, okay, I'm gonna buy it. Then the city said, no, you can't buy it because somebody from Australia bought it.
But wait a minute, Adolph. Let's be clear. Let's be clear, because we don't want to misinform our viewers. It's not the city. It is the land bank, which is a separate authority.
Well,
And the mayor, whoever the future mayor
there's no
is,
question.
he can use that as a tool and he can use that as leverage, because something that we've talked about is that Detroit may not have Belle Isle, we may not have water, but we got a lot of land. And that land is very, very valuable. So if the
Yeah.
mayor, in my opinion, the mayor should not get rid of the land bank, but he does have the
But the
ability
mayor,
The
to
mayor
have
can
people appointed on that board.
he can't
He
control
can, he
it.
can restructure
Right.
to make
Right.
it, and he can do it. Well, first of all, he has appointees on the board. The mayor can control the money that goes to the land bank authority.
Absolutely.
So
So
he controls
and I
it.
know that Mayor Duggan recently, I think he pulled back some of the funding because probably for all the reasons that we're talking about right now. So that would be a top priority for me, because in the other place, in this goes to development is building and safety. I have a plan. I don't have enough time to talk about the plan, but I'll give your viewers a snapshot.
Well, we want you to come. We want
Okay.
you to come back on.
A lot of folks are
Chief
talking
Craig,
about 2020.
tell
This
them.
summer 2020.
So
I think we need to have the chief back. So we can-
Yeah,
I would
we-
love to talk about 2020 because
Yeah.
we would have said it got it right. And to the folks, to the critics who think we didn't do it right, you know, it's sad that, because when you talk to Ms. Smith, going back, who lives on Gratiot, he says, "Thank you, Chief Craig, for keeping our city safe." We're not going to allow radical criminals to come in our city and destroy our city. That's not what Detroiters want.
So how you feel about this primary?
What I feel about it? I'm feeling it.
You gonna be one of the finalists?
I absolutely believe I'm going to be the next mayor of Detroit.
As we said,
Chief Craig for mayor.com.
okay.
And we don't want to let our viewers think we're ignoring their points, but we need more time to discuss these issues.
No question. We're gonna bring a chief back.
I look forward to
We only
coming
got
back.
an hour. You know, we can be here all.
You gave me 30 minutes, and
Yeah.
guess what?
You went over.
I went over.
Yeah, no
Look,
question. I figured
Listen,
that. Yeah, we're gonna
listen,
we gonna
Chief
take it.
Craig, I got on Adolph about doing a face-to-face with you and not allowing you to come on the show live where people could actually ask you questions. I think we've had I know we have a lot of comments and people have a lot of questions. We're looking forward to you coming back on the show, as
Can't
well
wait.
as the other mayoral candidates.
Okay, I look forward to it.
And no question. We're gonna take a break and we're gonna come back with our next guest. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. Are you living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, or maybe you know someone who's in the same situation? The probate process may be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. We have several nonprofit partners who have free attorneys who can assist you. Contact our office, 313-224-5990, or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. Don't lose your family property. Some of these properties have been in the family for 4 or 5 generations. Contact us now. We're here to help.
Could have been here forever.
Oh, I love it.
It's 2 hour.
Well, welcome back to Detroit in Black and White. That was a great interview.
I'm gonna go to the 13th.
Hello, everybody. We're having a moment here on Detroit in Black and White. We've got a lot going on here, but thanks for sticking with us. We don't have Vanessa here to keep us in line, or Alan. So
Well, listen,
We're kinda
y'all
falling
can
off
keep me
the
in line.
Well, we got one of your homeboys here.
yes.
Who's my homeboy?
If we got 2 Taylor people. We've been outnumbered here.
I feel pretty
Oh,
good.
Tucky
this morning.
Taylor?
Let's add another-
Tucky Taylor.
Police
Well,
chief.
before you introduce them, let me apologize. I am in Cleveland. at a dance event. One of my sisters, dancing sisters, came in the room, and I didn't realize I didn't have it muted, and she didn't realize that you could see her. Listen, that's one of the things that happens when you live. But I apologize for the disruption.
Could have brought her on. We would have been fine.
I told her she could have come in the camera.
So introduce yourself, Marty.
My name is Martin Juilliard. I'm running for city council in Taylor, Michigan.
Well, what do you do? Are you running for city council? But you've been causing a lot of pain. Some of these elected officials. They got a towing scandal. Robert Davis and everybody else that's involved.
They filed a lawsuit against me and
area towing.
Yeah.
Who else over there?
You got
you saying
yeah.
the snitch from Detroit, right?
Yeah.
So tell us what.
Yeah, they sued me. So it's not like I could talk about them, but I do talk about them anyhow, because that's not what we need in that city. We've already just went through, a mayor's administration. He's now in federal prison for 71 months, and we got
Rick Sowers, right?
Rick Sowers. Yeah, we got to clean it up. There's still some of his remnants.
People say he's still running the city.
You know what? It seems to be like that, because the mayor there now, Tim Woolley, is. He's causing more problems than it's.
Give us a condensed version of what's going on in Texas. You a whistleblower,
Yeah.
and you and your son has been, receiving death threats. Threats of lawsuits.
Well, they did sue me, so we're just waiting to see, how that goes. That's slander. If you tell the truth, it's slander. I don't know.
Well, that's not slander.
Yeah, everything.
Well, we have an attorney on. Where did she go? As soon as we started talking legal issues, she disappeared.
Yeah. But it's just I'm fighting, for the people, because this is costing the people way too much money. With the attorney fees and.
What's happening with the towing contract and how that's become a major headache for Taylor?
Well, you have a gentleman who's been there 25 years, a good, clean guy, good background. Everything. He was, at some point in time, he became part of the whistleblower in the Solers situation.
Was he a whistleblower in the Detroit towing scandal too? Wasn't he something?
I don't know. I don't remember. I haven't seen too much or read too much about that. But
he's a well-respected businessman.
Yeah.
Business.
Yeah. Detroit area. Everybody thinks, I work for him and all this stuff, because, I think he's a good guy. And that's the type of people we need in the city. We don't need to bring in, we have a problem with Al's Asphalt, who was tried in Houston, tried to bid with me. And now they just give that guy a 3-year contract or something. I just don't see how, that's good for the city. I think it just continually puts a black eye. There's a few people that are leaving, the council, and there's, one that should be. They're attacking the 3 people that are probably keeping the city together.
Who are those 3 council people?
You have Lindsay Rose, you have Tina Daniels, and you have Joe Brandana, who I think, in my opinion, have done an amazing job, fighting that battle.
Taylor's always been a tough political city, always from the beginning when it became a city in 1968. It's a more recent city, but politics it's volatile to say the least.
Oh, definitely. It's just, I was told by an ex-police officer there, who started in the 70s. He said there's never been a politician there that wasn't corrupt.
I don't want to go that far. I'm not going to suggest that.
Yeah.
But it's been a volatile, we've had. It's been interesting. Now the police department's down to
63.
And how in the hell that the police department got 52 people? How many thousands of people live in town?
65,000.
And yet, I see the police chief on fucking TV talking about we ICE. You know what? We're gonna be chasing illegal immigrants.
Well, I don't think that's what he's.
Well, that's what.
Let's
He might
talk-
have not said it, but when you see something like that, you're saying, "Damn, how did they get involved in this shit?"
And then
when
they don't have enough.
Right.
So you bring up a great point. Well, last night, or not last night, this week, a young man, a Guatemalan national in Fairfax County, refused to turn this gentleman over the ICE. He'd been arrested over 30 times for credit card fraud, assault, trespassing, drug crimes. 16 immigration retained. Fairfax County refused to turn him over to the federal authorities. So I think when a police department, a county, Wayne County, there's agreements that are in place to turn people over that are already incarcerated. I don't think any police agencies out there trying to arrest.
But you know that we had a history in this country where it was at a time when you had somebody from the South, particularly African Americans, escape police custody, come up to Michigan, Illinois, New York, and the governors there say, we're not sending them back down there because of the system. We don't always had that disagreement between states and stuff. There was a time where you could rob a bank here and then say, let me get to Ohio, to Toledo, because they're not going to pursue me. Don't happen anymore.
Right. Well, it's not Bonnie and Clyde days.
No, it's not.
Let me say this though. Chief Blair is a good, upstanding chief in my eyes. You know, so whatever decisions he makes, I'm going to back him. I don't think it's as big as some people are making it out to be.
But you running for city council.
Right.
You want to make getting contracts fair.
Definitely.
Everybody, and you getting elected to city council. What kind of message would that send to the residents of Taylor?
What kind of message that?
Yeah, if you got elected to the city council.
Well, I would just, I'm just an average person, hardworking person. Raised my son in that city on my own, and I just, I'm seeing things that I am not comfortable with at all. So those are, things that I want to get up there and change. I want to, do whatever it takes to help the police add to their force and the fire department. Both need it. I'm thinking, some kind of cadet system in the high school, something like that. I mean, we don't have much involvement with the high school as a city, but it would definitely be, an idea. To help things.
Yeah, of course.
No, I was just going to ask how people get a hold of you, Marty. What do you have a website? Do you have?
I do a podcast. So it's Taylor Uncovered. We have it on Facebook and we have it on YouTube. So and I have a guy we're going to
come on. How often do it come on?
I try to do it once a week. It's usually on a Wednesday. And then I load it up and, put it on the different platforms.
Okay.
Let's not forget about Vanessa's out there. Are you out there, Vanessa?
I'm here. I'm listening. I'm listening to
We lost
Taylor.
you for a minute.
Well, anyway, Marty, we're going to have you back. Marty Julia from Taylor.
Appreciate it, guys. Appreciate it.
And we're going to take a quick break and come back and wrap up.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in a home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Well, Vanessa, your final thoughts on our interview with Chief Craig. I know we had a lot of folks that want to keep Craig here. We'll be here till Monday.
Well, you know what? I think we got something here. I think we should really, since they're talking about, I saw an article yesterday about debates and why they're not having debates or whatever. But I think Detroit Black and White, the greatest show on YouTube, Facebook, and all social media platforms. I think we got something here. Maybe we should host town halls on Saturdays. And those people who are running for mayor, that's serious and want to answer to the people, we can have people come down to McShane's, eat breakfast, buy a drink, but ask these candidates the real questions. I think that's something we should really think about. An hour worth of time, they should be able to carve out their time. I thought it was a good interview. I was very candid. I was very honest. I'm always honest with people, but I hope that this resonates with people, and I'm hoping that we would get the rest of the candidates maybe to once we all meet that we can do the same thing with the rest of the candidates. I want everybody to continue to like, subscribe, and share. Talk about Detroit in black and white, and join us again on Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m.
Yeah.
I think making the pensioners whole in Detroit was the point that somebody made, and it's still an important point. I want to thank all the viewers also. We're struggling here. I was trying to read some of the comments, but we didn't get much opportunity to answer the comments, and I apologize for that. There were some good comments and some negative comments about Chief Craig, and I appreciate every single one.
Well, like I told the chief that, the invitation here, we're not trying to ambush. This is not ambush interviews. And, we've had several mayoral candidates to come on and stuff. And we just want an honest discussion of what's happening in our city and their vision for Detroit, And unfortunately, there are a few of the candidates that they don't like publicity. How the fuck you gonna run for mayor?
Or listen, or they listen to the wrong people. I think that's what it is. You listen to the
You
wrong
give them
folks.
a form. You give them a form
Absolutely.
and say, you can come here and nobody's, gonna a bitch smack you or whatever, saying
Maybe.
you can. Well,
Vanessa had honest.
Yeah.
Vanessa made a great honest point to the chief, and I think our viewers.
Vanessa didn't like me when she met me.
I think the viewers asked great honest.
And she let you know, and that's what I like about Vanessa. Listen, it's the same.
Well, how did I meet you?
How you meet me under the same circumstances. Jim threw a dagger in my back and the front and the side. I was ambushed. It was an ambush interview. But anyway, this is Detroit in black and white. We'll be back on Wednesday at 8:30. And we're going to continue to bring those folks we think that's important for the people of Detroit to be able to ask the tough questions. We got some good viewers, I tell you. We didn't ignore it. And the chief said 30 minutes. They schedule was tight. Of course, he likes to talk about it.
I'm going to make a list of those questions, and we're going to submit those
And
questions.
I think that's a good idea. I think that he should hopefully he'll watch the show. He'll look at the questions, and when he comes back, he'll answer the questions. And anybody else that comes on the show, they need to do the same thing. We've had a few other candidates come on, and we've had viewers ask questions, and we're not able to get to all those questions, but we want to.
We're not. So we'll see you on Wednesday.
See you on Wednesday.